You're live.
Hi, everybody. My name is Bobby Sanabria, co-artistic director of the Bronx Music Heritage Center, the BMHC, the place to be, along with Elena Martinez, who is also the other co-artistic director. And as you know, because of the pandemic, we've been doing a lot of live streaming events, particularly this one every week, Percussion Discussion, where we do things where we give you examples of various artists in different traditions in the world of percussion. I myself have done a few of these percussion discussions talking about various aspects of Afro-Caribbean percussion, but occasionally we get to interview someone who is part of our many traditions. And in this case, tonight is a special evening because we have one of the foremost authorities on the music known as Bomba and Plena from our querida island, our beloved island, our ancestral homeland, Puerto Rico. He has a fascinating career that we're going to cover. He is the winner of the National Endowment of the Arts Heritage Award for his fantastic work in preserving these traditions and passing them on and spreading them out, not only through Puerto Rico, but of course here in New York City and throughout the world. He's got a fascinating career that you're going to find out a lot about, especially the people that actually know him, work with him in his group, Los Pleneros de la 21, who probably don't know a lot about his background, being trained as a formal musician. So please welcome the great legendary Juan Gutiérrez here to Percussion Discussion. Juango, as he is known by everyone, ¿cómo tú estás?
Thank you, Bobby. Tú eres muy generoso con tus palabras. You're so generous and kind with your words. And thank you, but it's really lift me up the spirit, under this trying times, difficult times. And like I was, we were talking before we went live and on the air, and I've been good. My family's been good, but I really feel for those people who have a hard time themselves with their families, and I'll always have them in mind for all New Yorkers, for all Latinos. Okay, así que
Fantastic. And we welcome everybody that's viewing. We'd like to remind you that toward the end of Percussion Discussion, you'll be able to submit your questions through the live chat, and Juango will answer your questions. Juango, vamos a empezar en el principio. Where are you originally from in Puerto Rico, and when were you born?
oh wow, well, that was a long time ago. Okay, I'm 69 years old. Okay, I was born May the 8th, 1951, in Santurce, Puerto Rico. Okay, Santurce. Most of you might know, but that's a municipality of the capital city of San Juan. But a very picturesque place. I was very diverse place because there were the government buildings, the big businesses, all but the arts and the media was there, and the musicians used to live there because that's where it concentrated in the 50s and 40s and 50s. You know, so I guess not only because I live there in the metropolitan area, that's what we call it, but I think because of the island, the Puerto Ricans have this very particular quality, I guess, like Cuban, like Dominicans, all the Antilles, we have that persona, that thing about being musical because music is part of our daily lives. We cannot live without music. It's like it's like the air we breathe. Music has to be there, not only for musicians, for people who is for everyone.
Now, the
So
music you were listening to when you were young, was it these traditional forms like bomba, plena, and of course la música jíbara, which is the music of the mountain people, the farmers, etc. But were you listening? Besides that, were you listening also to what we call American popular music, like jazz, R&B, rock music, etc.? Were you listening to all those things at the same time?
Well, yes, when I was a teenager, I started, like going on my own, listening to stuff like jazz, but rock and roll was very popular in those days, as you know. and it was all the time in the radio. For jazz, you have to be selective and try. There was the government radio, W WIPR had they had like a weekly program of jazz, and that it was incredible. And also on black and white TV, I remember this program. This show is called, probably you know it, Bobby. It's called Jazz Scene USA.
Oh, right. Yes, yes.
Oh my God, that really blew my mind because all the big bands, all the great cats were playing there. They were featured there every single week. Was recordings of shows that they did and concerts and stuff.
I remember the show well. It was in black and white. It was, yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
And
And
now, when from the little that I know of your background, you got a set of timbales, which is,
yes,
for those of you who don't know what timbales are, the instrument that Tito Puente made famous. You got a set of timbales when you were 8, 9 years old, from your
that's
father.
correct. I used to be banging on the tables, on the la lata de galleta, and on the desk. And teachers were, calling my father, my mother. They were complaining because I was banging on the desk all the time in school. I said, what's wrong with this kid? Well, and my father just told the teacher he just likes music. He just keeps banging. I guess I'm gonna do something about that. I think, oh, I'm in trouble. And so on my seventh birthday,
Okay.
he went to uh, this. It was a music store. I learned after that, but it was called Fine Pianos in Santurce, en la Parada 20 y la Avenida Ponce de León. I remember because, he told me after that. He got me a set of timbales. Bobby Gretsch timbales.
Wow. Wow. Do you still have them?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes. That's the collector's item.
yeah.
It's not the Lady Ludwig, that everybody has. I have two pairs of those. Not one, two. And then the Gretsch timbales. Gretsch.
Wow, wow. These are collector's items. He's talking the Liri timbales that he's talking about. The Liri company were known for making the finest timbales of that time period. They were the instrument that all of the masters, Willie Bobo, Tito Puente, used. But the Gretsch timbales he's talking about are even rarer. So
Yeah.
it's fantastic that you have those. Maybe on your Facebook page one day you could take pictures and post them on there for us,
Yeah.
so we could all salivate as percussionists.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes, indeed.
So at that time period, you get the timbales. Did you basically at that time did you teach yourself, or was it somebody in the
Yeah,
neighborhood who
I
taught you
thought
the basic
myself,
things?
yeah, exactly. The on the radio there's always music, and I was always listening to Cortijo because Cortijo was daily there. 5 days a week he was on the radio. I showed them Mediodía in WKQ radio, right? And that was a live show. It's a variety show, but they started, and they played 4 or 5 songs throughout the show, along with all the singers and artists, right? But then the Cortijo was all over, on TV and las fiestas patronales, in many, many other events, public events that you were able to enjoy and by free. And also, other places. My father was a music lover, so he used to play records all the time. I remember Julio Gutiérrez, El Conjunto Batachá.
Wow.
Yes. And of course, Julio Gutiérrez, Pérez Prado, also, of course, Tito Puente, Benny Moré, of course. And all those 78 records that my father used to collect. Oh man, I had a ball. I had a ball.
Fantastic. Now, for those of you who don't know, Rafael Cortijo is an iconic figure in Puerto Rican musical history. He is responsible for adapting a lot of the typical bomba rhythms that we use, particularly the sika, to the dance band format and spreading that out. And so, those of you who don't know who he is, you should definitely check out his recordings. You could start by going to YouTube. There are many recordings that he's done. Very, very influential. Now, at that time period, when did you formally? I know that you had some musical training
Yeah,
when you were young. When did you start formally taking music lessons and learning about theory, how to read
yeah.
the classical percussion instruments, orchestral? When did you start doing that?
Yeah, I remember my father talked to a young cat, up in the block where we used to live in Caparra Heights. That was, the suburb of San Juan, near the Avenida Roosevelt. Uh, so he, he got this music teacher. He gave me a couple of lessons, not much, and I kept on my own. He
Now, the
didn't.
lessons that he gave you, were they on piano or just theory?
It was theory. It was theory, no piano. But then I up in the block, the same young cat. He had a brother. Me acuerdo, Danny y Derry. Los dos. They had a small combo, and they used to rehearse in the living room. And all the time I heard, because I lived, downhill, and I had to go up the hill to their house, and because I was listening, was they started rehearsing, I ran up there, just watch, not saying a word, you know. They was acoustic bass, remember, an upright piano, a trumpet, timbales. You know who was the timbalero? Quique Talavera.
Wow.
Yeah.
I thought you were going to say Mike Malaret from the Gran Combo, but
Talavera.
wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
And do you remember who was playing congas at the time? Or?
No, no, I don't. I know. But I remember Kike because I was, like a boom,
Wow.
right
Wow.
there, watching every move that he was doing.
So it was like doing that. You're getting free lessons basically while
Yes,
watching
yes,
these guys.
watching, just watching. And then this show, I used to tune in, Cortijo, and then I turn on the TV, and that was Vicentico Morales. He had a trio with Julito Chan and Jimmy Rivera, el papá de Jimmy Rivera.
Jimmy
The drum-
Rivera, the drummer for
Yeah,
later on with Mongo Santa Maria. So his father
yeah.
was in that group. Was he playing what, timbales or
He was,
drum?
he had this setup. He had a bass drum and a snare drum and the timbales and the cowbell, ting, ting, ting,
Right.
ting, 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 and the cymbal hi hat, because they used to accompany also singers that were coming into the show. But they had this, ¿cómo tú llamas? The show theme. It started with a couple of mallets on the timbales. De momento, ruca, dum, pin, tin, tiquele, que, quele, que, tin, tiqui. I had that by memory, man.
Wow.
I got that by memory. I remember I was practicing at home right there, and then and there was an old lady with the umbrella, mediodía. Ella miró, wow, the show already started. So
So it
because
was a
I
little.
was
It was a little.
listening, it was very, characteristic. It was the symbol of that show.
Okay.
I remember that, man.
I wonder if there's any clips of that on YouTube, man.
Oh
We gotta
my
check it.
goodness.
Wow, man.
I,
So
I yeah, that
you had
would
great.
be
You had
really
great
nice.
role models. You had
Oh
great
yeah.
role models on the timbal starting off. Now, at that time, did you see any bomba and plena in the streets as a youth? Did you see any of that?
Pleneros, I used to see pleneros en el parque de pelota, Sisto Escobar, allá en Puerta de Tierra, en San Juan. If you know uh, Parque Muñoz Rivera, when you go to the beach, ¿cómo que se llama? Esa playita, that really nice beach in front of Parque Muñoz Rivera. Then you see the Sisto Escobar Park. That was the first baseball stadium. According to me, I don't know. Probably there was something before that, but that's. I used to go to the. My father used to take my brother and me to the games. Los Cangrejeros, whoever was there, against the Cangrejeros, and there was Pleneros playing there.
Now,
All
when
the
you saw these pleneros, did they affect you the same way that the people like Jimmy Rivera and these other guys playing the timbales, did it affect you the same way, or did you were still more into the timbales?
No, because remember, the pleneros were, once in a while, and then, I live, in this, what do you call it, in the neighborhood, in a suburbs of San Juan. If you want to see la plena, la bomba, you have to go to the barrios, you
Okay.
know. And, at that time, but eventually, you know, eventually you get to meet, I mean, the island is
Right,
so
right.
close, it's so tight knitted in terms of music and the relationship of people and all that. I remember La Familia Cepeda when they started, when they were performing, because I was playing also in bands, and they were bringing the shows, and La Familia Cepeda was part of the show and all that. It was incredible.
Wow. So those seeds are planted there in what you do now, back way back then. Do you remember the first professional band that you played with? The first like gig that you got paid money for? To they called you up, Wango, we need you to play this gig, etc., etc. Yeah.
Yes, I don't recollect his first name, but his last name was uh, Cuadrado. I think it was Jimmy Cuadrado, and his piano and his quartet.
Right.
So I got the first break. It was playing lounge music, society music, for big dances,
Right.
private dances. You had to go on, black tie and all that. I was just a kid, uh, 12 years old, 12, 13 years old, you know. And my father used to take me over there, with my set of timbales, the bombo and the snare drum and the cymbal to play the guarachas and boleros, whatever, the paso dobles, everything, you
Right.
know. And that was a great school for me. Not only, that was my first professional gig, of course, but a paying gig. Big professional, no, paying gig. You know what I mean?
Right.
That distance years apart from being professional.
Right. So you're starting out playing some professional gigs, etc.
Yeah.
At this time, were you enrolled in any music program at all at school?
By that time, I was already at the La Escuela Libre de Música. And this was a great program from the government. They used to give this test, aptitude test in music. And I remember taking the test of all these sounds and rhythms. You have to identify if this rhythm is the same. They gave you choices, right? And then you have to, do the little square. With the so I was accepted to school, La Escuela Libre de Música in Atorrey, and that was a game changer, man,
Wow.
because that school is like a school here in New York that is a magnet for many other kids from all over the city. It's not from a particular zone or neighborhood. It's from all over San Juan, Rio Piedra, Cupey, everything. So, I mean, los hermanos Figueroa were all there. You know, I remember,
You're talking about people like Eric Figueroa, the piano player, and
I'm talking about la familia Figueroa, the Guillermo Figueroa, Carmelina Figueroa, the Figueroa families, they were
right.
in history, and all of them were there. You know, as a matter of fact, in that school, all the great music, all the cats that were teaching there were professional musicians. Some of them were from the classic, scene, but the others were from the hotels, playing recordings. Remember the Gonzalez Peña? They were the greatest of the greatest. I remember in their desks, they had this, their desk, teacher's desk, and with the glass, and under the glass there's pictures 8x10s of their bands. Oh man, I used to go and hang with the teacher, just watching those pictures, and
Wow.
mira, y ellos todo el tiempo eran, being sharp. Oh man, they were, dapper. You know what I mean?
Right,
Oh,
right. Elegancia, yeah. Now, when you were there, how many years were you there, like in that school?
I I started in seventh grade to 12th grade.
Wow, a long time. So while you were there, you were studying classical percussion like timpani, mallets, snare drum, and also drum set, etc., and
Oh, we had
Afro-Cuban,
the.
Afro-Latin percussion. Yeah.
No, it was basically, general music, but I got in the band, right? But the band is this concert band, and then there was no percussion. The very first two, maybe the first week. So I started with clarinet, and then
Wow.
the teacher, Mr. Luis González Peña, que Dios lo tenga en la gloria, is a great musician, man. He used to say, anybody wants to go to to play some percussion and drums over there, I raise my hand. Me, and then boom, from that time on. But listen, I was in the second class of that program. Second year. The first year was Perico.
Luis
Perico was
Perico Ortiz,
part
the
of, yeah,
trumpet player.
Luis
Wow.
Perico was part of that first year, the first class that graduated from La Escuela Libre de Música. Then
Wow.
I was part of the second class, the year after.
For those of you who don't know, Luis Perico Ortiz is one of our greatest trumpet players. He became very well known through Mongo Santa Maria and then working as a producer for the Fania record company in New York City and then as a composer arranger, and he played with Machito and every band, Puente, etc. And then he formed his own band, and the rest is history. Very well known, respected musician, not only in Puerto Rico but worldwide.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
amazing. And you were playing clarinet. How long did you last on the clarinet?
Well, maybe 1 or 2 weeks because I was started blowing, but then the teacher said, anybody wants? I went there to the percussion section. I
So
stayed there.
there was no percussion teacher at the school at that time?
No, there was no percussions, not at all. There was then they after years after, like 3 or 4 years after, they hired Samuel Lipschitz. Is an Argentinian, but this guy wasn't a percussionist. He was a musician. I think he used to play clarinet.
Right,
He
right.
wasn't a percussion, but he knew his thing.
So
So
you basically had to teach yourself the timpani and mallets and all that kind of stuff by yourself then.
yes, indeed. And then after I graduated from high school, I went to the university, and then I heard about the not even the conservatory had a percussion teacher in those days. But then I heard that there was that they hired a percussion professor teacher at the Conservatory of Music. So I went there to audition and apply. I got in. And
Wow.
it was fantastic, fantastic. I remember when I went in, I went into this. There was a session, a percussion section with the percussion instructor, and all the students, they were all professional percussionists and musicians that were playing, in the hotels and many other places. Among them, uh, Alex Necio Soup. You know who
Acuña.
Alex Necio Soup is?
Acuña, yeah, Acuña. Yeah, Alex.
Alex Acuña. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
For those of you who don't know, Alex Acuña would go on to play with Perez Prado, but then he would go on to play with Weather Report, the greatest
Yes.
jazz fusion group in the world, and become a
Also,
mainstay in the studios in L.A. Yeah.
yeah,
Wow, amazing.
so I don't know if you know Rudy Regalado. I think he
Yes, really, yeah, yeah.
Venezolano. Yeah, so he was there too.
Wow, wow.
Yeah, all great cast, great,
But
fabulous.
they were playing Latin percussion and also drum set in the hotels and in bands, but
Yes.
they didn't know classical percussion. They were studying classical percussion there.
Yeah, but they had
Contemporary analysis.
jobs that, you know,
Right.
because these guys are top musicians. You know, they were playing the hotel. Vegas, you know, Vegas is part of the Vegas circuit. You know, because all these singers, big stars, used to come to the hotels.
Right.
You know, so they used to be the backup side musicians from backup bands from the hotel bands. So I mean, it was incredible, incredible.
Now,
So,
from there, how did you get? And I'm obviously at that time you're also continuing to gig and
yeah.
become more well known, especially through your connections with Rudy and Alex. How did you get to the Manhattan School of Music in New York City?
Okay. Well, I used I stuck. You know, I was there in the conservatory. So then there was some conflict that happened that the teacher, percussion instructor, had to leave, and then I left too because
By the way, who was the percussion instructor? Do you remember?
oh yes, oh yes, oh yes. I'm gonna tell you in a minute because this guy was very controversial. It's a long story. Frederick King.
Oh,
And
Fred King.
Frederick, he was a close friend with Max Roach.
Right. He's
And he
African
invited
American.
Max
Yeah.
Roach to Puerto Rico.
Right, right. And he was part of M Boom, the percussion ensemble
There
later
you
on.
go. There you go. So
Right.
Frederick, you know, well, I'm gonna say this public because it's the first time it happened. You know, they fired him. This guy, he wasn't, you know, he was a very, you know, tough guy. And then they fired him, and then he sued the conservatory and the festival. Well, the festival Casas was the institution that hired the music, contracted the musicians to play the Casal festivals and to teach at the conservatory. That was the deal, to teach at the conservatory and to play at the Casals festival. So they
Pablo
fired
Casal.
Frederick King, and Frederick King sued them for racial discrimination. That was the first time it happened in Puerto Rico.
Wow.
He won. And he took a lot of money and he left.
Wow.
Yeah.
Fred King, if those of you who don't know, African American, great timpanist, all around classical percussionist, and one of the founding members of Max Roach's percussion ensemble, and Boom, which I'm proud to say I've been part of M Boom for the last I would say 6 years. You know, so it's so I know him well. But I didn't know that he had sued the.
Yeah.
That was the story. You know?
Yeah. So,
Wow, fantastic. Okay, so
so
how do
then,
you get to Manhattan School of Music?
yeah, when that happened, you know, he left, and then I said, well, this is what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna get a job, you know, a day job, so I can save some money and go to United States, to New York, whatever. You know, I was just saving money. And then I heard that they had hired another percussion teacher, Pavel Burda from Milwaukee University. And this guy, he was great. He was from Prague,
The
Czech
Pratt
from Prague.
Institute. Yeah, the Pratt Institute. Yeah.
Oh man, great, great, great teacher. He really motivated everybody. And then, after a year, I think it was a year and a half, I started talking to some of us saying, listen, my contract is due soon. I'm going back to Milwaukee. You can come with me. You know, you'll be more than welcome to come with me to Milwaukee. And then I said, well, okay. So I applied to Milwaukee, but I also applied to Manhattan School of Music. Why? I don't know why. But I remember Fred Hinger was a teacher at the Manhattan School of Music. And I taped an audition in mallets and timpani, and I think it was snare drum something, you know. And I sent it out, and to Fred Hinger. And Fred Hinger, he got back to me. He said, "Listen, why don't you come to New York? You're good. You know, I like what you did. Come to New York and audition in front of me." Oh, yo, shit. Okay.
Now, for
So
those of you who don't know, Fred Hinger is one of the greatest timpanists at that time in the
yes,
world. So the fact that, man, that's amazing. That's amazing.
yes, yes, yes. So I got married. I got married, and then I came to New York. Yeah, and then I went to audition, and then I got in.
Wow,
1976.
wow. So and you finished. You got your degree in classical percussion from there. Or?
Yes, in percussion, basically. Yeah,
Right.
exactly. Yeah.
Now, who were some of the other teachers at Manhattan School of Music besides Fred Hinger?
Oh man, this guy. There were like three of the main. Uh, there was this guy who passed away. Um, I remember seeing him again in a concert in Carnegie Hall. He was playing there. I'll tell you in a minute. But these guys, they were tops.
So you're talking about Sal Goodman, or maybe? Or
Well, Saul Goodman, he used to teach. He used to teach at Juilliard
okay,
and also at Brooklyn College. I went to Saul Good. No, 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 not to Saul. Morris Goldenberg. I
okay,
went to his house. He was married to a Puerto Rican lady.
right. That's what I heard. Yeah,
Yes.
Mo. They used to call him. Yeah.
So man, so no, but I stuck at Manhattan School of Music. I enjoyed it there.
Wow.
Then,
Yeah.
yeah, after 3 years of Jose Rossi. He was
Yes.
my good friend. He was already playing gigs, and he was playing with Patti LaBelle and LaBelle. First LaBelle, the trio, the ladies, right? Then Patti, and then he called me once and said, "Listen, I'm going with Peter Allen. If you want to, have this gig." He was doing a Boston truck tour of the Broadway show. Your arms too short to watch who's God. He said, "You want to get this gig because I'm leaving, but if you do, you have to come here. Be next weekend to Ann Arbor, Michigan. They were over there for the weekend doing the show, and I was in Puerto Rico because my boy was born. I was there, with my wife and my little kid. It was just 2 weeks old, and I said, okay, I'm going. So I went over there, and then I sat down in the pit. When I went, I saw the show, and he gave me the charts. And then when I started looking at the charts, there was nothing there that he was playing. You say, "Oh, what's this?" You know. So I recorded everything in a small cassette, player, and I don't think I didn't sleep, for the whole weekend because they were closing on Sunday to shows, and then Monday is dark, as you know. There's no shows. There's travel day,
Right.
so we started in Cleveland, and next up was Cleveland. I remember, man. I didn't sleep. I was starting that recording and putting notes all over the charts. Boom, 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 boom. And then I remember the first night. After I did that, everybody came to give me a hug. Oh man, you're the man, you're the man. Yo, wow, that's something. That's been one of my greatest times, my greatest days.
So
You
this
know,
was with Patti LaBelle then. Yeah.
no, that was with your arms too short to
Oh,
back.
your arms are too short to box with God. Wow.
That's the show, man.
Wow. Wow.
And then, who was there before Patty? Patty used to do that show. Jennifer Holiday.
Wow.
That was where she started, and then Dreamgirls. She did
Right.
Dreamgirls after that. Yeah, and then Al Green was there too later on. With Patty LaBelle, and they hate their guts. They couldn't stand each other, man.
Wow. Now, when you were when you were in the pit, right? What were you playing? Were you playing congas, vibes,
Everything,
timpani, everything? Wow.
everything, even chimes, glockenspiel, tumbadoras, I started adding stuff after that. I did 5 years with that show.
Doing the bus and truck tour of
Yeah,
that.
and then we did San Francisco, we did LA, we did big cities, Chicago, Detroit. We stayed for a month, and in Detroit, remember, Buddy, Buddy Rich came to town, and they told us, listen, Buddy Rich is going to rehearse at the ballroom, but you gotta go there and be quiet. That was one of the scariest days I ever had, because this guy was tough.
Yeah, yeah.
He has this
For those of you who
reputation.
don't know, Buddy Rich is considered the greatest drum soloist in jazz in the history of the music. If you don't know who he is, if you're watching this and you're young, check him out on YouTube. Just look up Buddy Rich, and you'll be amazed. Buddy Rich, one and only. Yeah.
Oh, he was rough. He was tough with the musicians. Oh man, get it. But
Did you get
and
to talk to him at all?
no, are you crazy? No. But I remember when you know, in those days, we traveled all over the country, and I remember every time we went to a place, to a city, I check out the jazz clubs, and I saw everybody, man. I remember seeing Joe Williams a couple of times, the singer Joe, the blues.
From the Count Basie Orchestra, yeah.
Oh yeah, just a small group, and just him singing. Oh, forget it. Uh, so many. I remember this guy. What's his name? The Jewish guy, white guy, who went to. He's from New York, but he went to the West Coast. He opened
Oh,
up.
Shelly Man?
Shelly Man.
Yeah.
Shelly Man.
The drummer, yeah.
Yes, Shelly Man.
From
Man.
Brooklyn, yeah. From Brooklyn.
Oh yeah. So many, so many.
Now you're doing this, and then after that, did you get to go? Did Patti LaBelle hire you then after
No,
that?
no, Patty. I played with Patty a couple of shows, but I stuck. She after the show closed, I came back to New York, and I went back to school, and that's where La Plena started getting into me. I was already looking for that, because since I first got to New York, I thought, Bobby, listen, I said, I cannot aspire for an excellence in music if I don't know my music well. I thought I knew my music, but no, you never get to know the way you really want to know.
Was there like a Rubicon, un momento? Was there like a light bulb went off in your head? I've heard you talk about this, and correct me if I'm wrong, that one day you were walking through El Barrio and
Yes,
you heard some pleneros, like in front of a bodega, I think it was. And
yes.
then that's when the light bulb went off in your head. Now, for
Oh,
those of you who don't know what the plena is, it's our incredible folklore in Puerto Rico. We use these frame drums without jingles called panderetas, and it's our newspaper, our percussive newspaper. It's an incredibly deep poetic tradition. And I think I've heard you say this before, but maybe I'm getting the
yes.
story wrong. You were walking in El Barrio, Spanish Harlem, and you heard some pleneros.
Well, that was in La 115, between Lexington Park, right there.
115th in Lexington Park. Yeah.
115 between Lexington Park. You know who was there? Benny Ayala. Benny Ayala was the
Benny
man
Ayala, wow.
in there. Yeah, playing there. I used to, go there, hang out, and just watch very respectfully. I never,
They
just
were inside or outside? They
no,
were
just there, just there on the sidewalk,
on the right.
and just watching and talking with the cats, and just listening intently. You know what I mean? Musicians listening. Things like that. But let me tell you, you, Bobby, and me, we have a history by taking lessons from Puntilla, Orlando
Right, right.
Puntilla, the Bata drums. Remember
Right.
in Brooklyn?
Yeah. Yeah, yeah.
And then I was amazed by those sessions. I used to record those sessions and study them and break
Yep.
down all that. And by that time, I already had, I was playing with Pepe Castillo, and Galdo was there, Galdo Miranda, and Tito Cepeda was there also, and I was playing with them, I was playing that because I knew that, yo sabía la plena, yo sabía la bomba, yo sabía los ritmos básicos, I had the basic rhythm sound, because by working the music, you get to know that stuff. But
Let me just
yeah,
interject. Pepe Castillo is incredible musician. He did a recording along with Edgardo Miranda, who Juan just mentioned. Incredible guitarist. He could play anything, sight read anything, and he also was versed in the Puerto Rican mandolin-like instrument, the cuatro and the Cuban tres, Brazilian music, everything. And they did an album called Máquina del Tiempo.
Con Rafael
Cortijo, the Time Machine. Very forward thinking. You could check it out on YouTube, but get the album. It's a classic. So you're playing with all of these guys
yes.
that are forward thinking in terms of looking
Yes.
at the music in a kind of 21st century way, but way back then, and they know folklore, etc., etc. So,
And what happens, while we were doing all, busy doing all kinds of stuff, hanging out with Pepe, with Edgardo, Tito, playing the music, all the time, having a good time. And then doing the puntilla, doing all the things. And then I heard about Marcial.
Marcial Reyes.
I already knew Marcial because Marcial is already a legend. Marcial Reyes Avelo, foremost plenero. Okay? This is an iconic figure and a symbol of what La Plena is. All right? So he used to, as you know, Marcial Reyes used to play with Victor Montañez in Los Pleneros de la 110, 110th Street Pleneros. These are old-time Pleneros, but foremost Pleneros. And Marcial used to live in New York. He spent many, many years. And he worked here and he retired. He went back to Puerto Rico. But he came back every summer and stayed throughout the whole summer for 3, 4, 5 months until he started getting called and went back to Puerto Rico. So they had told me Marcial is around. He's in New York. He's gonna play at the La Fiesta de Santiago, allá in Rikers, no, Wars Island, right? And then allá en la fiesta de Loíza Aldea with Victor Montañez. I said, wow, so I gotta go there. So my wife, me, and my kids, we went there. And then all of a sudden, I see it, bunch of gente, a whole group of people, and La Plena. It's oh, shit, what's there? It was Marcial playing. But, while he used to do this all the time. Do La Plena so he can really get hyped up and warmed up before he going to the stage. So that's before going to the stage. So before he went to the stage with Vito Montañez, after they finished one of the songs, Marcial, excuse me, listen, my pleasure to meet you. My name is Juan Gutiérrez. I like, to get together with you. He said, come to get me tomorrow. Así me dijo, here's my number, call me, come and get me. And that's what happened. That was a Sunday. On Monday, I was at his house on Cortland Avenue, over there in the Bronx.
What avenue?
Projects, Cortland.
Oh, that's in the Melrose Projects?
Yeah.
That's where I grew up.
Yeah, really?
Yeah, 681. Do you remember the number of the building?
No. Pues el mismo que está en la esquina allí.
He must have lived in my building on 681 then. But I didn't know it at the time. Mira eso, man. You know who used to live there too? And this is just a quick aside. The timbalero for Ricardo Rey and Bobby Cruz. Candido Rodriguez. He lived in that building, and his mother used to do my mother's hair in that building.
Oh, wow.
And he, Candido, yeah, man. I think I don't know. I don't think he's alive anymore. But he had for those of you who don't know, Ricardo Rey, Bobby Cruz. Ricardo Rey went to Juilliard, tremendous Puerto Rican pianist, and Bobby Cruz the singer. Doc Cheatham used to play trumpet in that band, and he had big hits like Hala Hala y Boogaloo and things like that. Sonido Bestial, and Candido was the timbala player, and sometimes he played jazz drums. He could play really good jazz drums, but he lived in my building, and he had a giant afro.
Yeah, I
When he
remember. I
formed,
was left-handed, right? Was he left-handed?
uh, I think so. Yeah. No, no. He was
Okay.
right-handed, but
Okay.
he
Okay.
his brother Harry played bongo. His
Okay.
brother Harry, but he used
Yeah.
to he then he formed his own group, and he had a local hit called Soy Mezclao. Soy
Wow.
mezclao, soy blanco y moreno, y porque soy moreno, la jevita me encuentra muy bueno, soy. And he used to light his timbales sticks on fire. He put
Uh-huh.
lighter fluid on them and he play, you know.
Wow.
But one time at the Corso, that old club, remember?
Yes.
He went like this, like Tito Puente, and his afro caught on fire.
Oh.
But I can't believe that Marcial lived in my projects. But maybe, what year was that? Do you remember?
It was in the, I don't know if it was already at 80 or 79 or something like that, you know.
Oh yeah, so I had left. Yeah, because I graduated from Berkeley in '79,
Yeah.
and then in '81, my parents moved out of the projects. So yeah, so wow, but that's amazing that we have that
Yeah.
simple
Yeah.
connect,
Yeah. Yeah.
incredible uh, familial uh, connection, so to speak. So you go to the Melrose projects to study with Marcial. So
Went to get him. I went to go get him, and I brought it to my apartment, to our apartment right there, 126th Street and Broadway, all Broadway. Okay, and then you know my neighbor was Edgardo. Edgardo used
Miranda.
to hang out with us all the time with Marcial, and my wife used to cook at dinner and all that. I spent the whole day. You know,
Wow.
every time he said, "Listen, you gotta go to the bodega, get some more beer." I go, Marcial, what's up? The beer's gone. I need more beer. You know, so all the time. But then I had this boom box with the cassette. I used to, start recording. And when he noticed, I said, "Oh, you're recording? Okay, put that button." He said, "Ladies and gentlemen, this is Marcial Reyes, Plenero. This is a very good friend of mine here, a great musician, Juan Gutiérrez, and a great guitar player, Ricardo Miranda. And we're going to play a song right there for all of you listening." Tú sabes, creía que tenía un show de radio, and every time, I used to record those sessions.
Wow. And you still have those cassettes?
I still have so many.
Oh my God.
Yes, and that's what so many stories. I used to live in, times that I never had the opportunity to live through Marcial. Whether it was true or not, but I really had a ball, really imagine in my head.
So so basically he taught you through like oral tradition, singing
Yes.
songs for you, etc. This song I wrote it, or this song this guy wrote it 50 years ago, things like
For
that.
example, I used, we are so meticulous, percussionists about tuning the drums. So I was wondering, Marcial, how do you tune the drum, the panderos? I said, well, mira, eso es fácil. You know, you take a seguidor y suena ton, está muy bajito. Tiene que sonar, it has to sound tune. It made a lot of sense. Tone is too low. Tune is higher. Tune, this is right now, that's tone. So I know I have to tune it up,
Right.
because it's too low. Okay, and then de requinto. Oh no, ese tiene que sonar tan. Okay, está bien.
And what about the middle drum, the punteador, the
Oh,
punto de clave?
fíjate, eso es otra historia. Porque lo que pasa, this guy's old school, remember? And old school, Plena, just two drums.
Ah, I
Seguidor
got
de
you. Okay.
requinto.
That's
And
it.
then,
Then.
but every time they were, Tito used to come to my house also sometimes and playing Le Requinto, and because he took some lessons from myself before me, at the Lexington Avenue Express. That was it, what it's called, that project. That I think Patato was there also. A lot of musicians, percussionists, Lexington Avenue something, Lexington Avenue Express in the early 70s. Tito was one of the kids who, who went on.
Talking about Tito Matos or
No, Tito Cepeda.
Tito Cepeda? Okay.
Yeah. And then I think that was a project that was put together, and Rene Lopez used to help in putting that project together. Then,
You talking about the Henry Street settlement? Is
no, it was in a barrio. I think it was
okay.
Lexington Avenue Express or something like that. And
Before we go on, we
yeah.
have so much to go over. I'm going to ask you can we go a little bit over the hour? ¿Podemos ir un poquito más de la hora?
¿A quién tú le preguntas? ¿A
¿A
Georgie?
usted?
I'm good. I'm good.
Okay, great. Because a lot of people have questions, etc. Remember, everyone, you can start, if you want, you can start typing in your questions now in the chat room. We'll
Yeah,
get to it in about 5 or 10 minutes. So.
Yeah, we're gonna fast forward now. And those times with Marcial were incredible. What happens, he used to, leave and come back next year, yeah, next summer, and then I remember the show closed. I think it was in Chicago. I came back to New York. That was in the summer, early summer, like June or something. And then he was already in New York and started, calling him, Marcial, I'm back. Oh yeah, great, come and get me. And we used to hang out all the time.
Now, how many years did you apprentice with him, or are you
Yeah,
still apprenticing with
I think it
him?
was about 3 years on and off, because every time he went back to Puerto Rico, came back again and back. When I used to go to Puerto Rico, I used to go to his house in Bayamon.
Wow.
Something. So anyway, I remember that summer. That was the summer '83, and I used to hang out all the time with him. And then I met los hermanos Flores en la casita de Chema on 158th Street over there. And then we used to
The
play.
South Bronx, yeah.
Yes, we used to play all the time with Janet Bobo Flores, Paquito Rivera, and Benjamin, was his youngest brother of Bobo, of Yanni. These are the sons, children of a grand Bobo Flores, a great percussionist, great panderetero, bombero, and bailador de la bomba. Hijo de Eustacio Flores, de allá de la 21. Okay? So anyway, so that's how we started, hanging out. And then I don't know how I got into this club on the west side. That was on Amsterdam Avenue, one of the projects. There was a downstairs on the second floor. There was a club, a social club, and that social club was managed by this guy from La 21, Cuco. Se llamaba Cuco. I was myself, of course. He said, "Vamos para el bar de Cuco. Allí podemos ensayar. We can rehearse there all the time." So that's how we got the group. We started.
Los Pleneros de la 21.
Yeah, no. What happened was every cat who went there to hang out was from La 21, old timers. And then, we got this gig because I was so proud of being around these old timers and these masters of this music. I started, talking to people, going to the student clubs, telling them, listen, I got the greatest folk band, just give us a chance. I went to this lady who used to preside la fiesta folclórica puertorriqueña. I was there every single day, after this lady, and she said, "I'm gonna give you a break. Bring that group to la fiesta." So we started rehearsing, and then one of the days of the rehearsal, I told myself, "We need a name." Oh, I got the name. The name is Los Pleneros de la Parada 21 de Santurce, Puerto Rico. That's the name. That's the name.
Wow, that's the full name.
Santurce, Puerto Rico.
That takes up the whole marquee. I'm glad you
Yes,
shortened it.
that was August 1983 that we had, you know, on the Fiesta Folclóricas, that was the big gig that we had, you know,
Wow.
en la concha acústica del parque, yo.
Now, when you did that, was it all just voices and percussion, or did you use
Yes.
so no
All
cuatro, no piano, no
no
bass?
cuatro, no cuatro, no. Then, but Edgardo, he was my next door neighbor. He was used to hang out with us, but he was touring all the time with Puente.
Right.
He used to play with Puente in those days. He was touring all the time. And then when he came back, you know, he used to play and fool around with us. The first time he played with us was at this gig that we had. It was a benefit for WBAI at Aaron Davis Hall, and it was Latin jazz all stars with you know, con Andy, Jerry, everybody, even how do you call it, the Cuban saxophone player.
Paquito de Rivera.
No, the old guy. Oh shit, oh, man. Cuban saxophone playing with man, with Carl Jader.
Oh, Chombo Silva.
Combo, yes.
Jose Chombo Silva, yeah.
Combo Silva, yeah. And then Edgardo was going to do that gig, and he also did our gig. That was the
Wow.
first time he did. He played with us, and Benny was there also. Uh, Gallito, Pablo Ortiz was there. That was the band, and then that was the first time that Eugenia danced with us. Okay, that's
Now, did you use so Edgardo is playing with you
yeah.
at that gig? Did you use a bass player too?
Oh,
And a
just the cuatro. That
wow,
was amazing, man. That was amazing.
man, what a history, man. I mean, so you get inspired playing the timbales as a kid.
Yeah.
You start playing as a young professional musician. You're in the Escuela Libre, and then all of a sudden
man.
you get to New York City through Wisconsin, and etc. Study at the Manhattan School of Music as a classical percussionist. You're playing with your arms too short to box with God,
Oh yeah, man.
Broadway show, and doing a bunch of other things as well. And then you wind up meeting Marcial, and you have an epiphany, and you become so immersed. And thank God that you did, because I must say, ladies and gentlemen, if it wasn't for this man, we really in New York City wouldn't know our Puerto Rican, Afro-Puerto Rican roots in the Plena and what we call the Bomba. Now, we haven't touched upon you with the Bomba. How did you get into the Bomba? Like,
Oh my goodness. Well, remember, you know, Yanni was there. You know, Miguel Angel Flores. That's his name. He was a bombero. He was a child of Bobo Flores, a foremost drummer, Bomba, a Plena drummer, and a Bomba dancer. Okay, and Eugenia Ramos. You know Eugenia, la mamá de Caco, Caco's mother,
right.
and Richie Bastard's grandma. Okay.
And let me tell you something. Caco used to live in the Melrose Projects too, but in the project across from me. So we used to see him all the time walking around in the neighborhood as well. And I used to play stickball with his nephews. And just real quick, one day his nephews go, "Hey, you want to see all the tuxedos my uncle has?" So we go up. I got the keys to the apartment. So we go up to the apartment. We open up the closet, and there's like 30 shark skin tuxedos, canary yellow, green, blue. Forget it. And then all of a sudden we hear the door, and it's Caco. "Hey, ¿qué lo que ustedes están haciendo ahí?" You know, like, and he goes, "Oh, so you like the tuxedos, huh? Put one on." And we're like 12 years old, 11 years, and we're scared, so we look like a bunch of little kids. He took a Polaroid of us, you know, laughing his butt off. But these guys were local heroes. But man, it's just amazing that what happens in the neighborhoods. So you with Miguel Flores, you start getting more into the bomba tradition as well. Then,
Yes, indeed. And then, you know, because this guy was, they were praying that lo que es la abertura del apio en la bomba, you know, los golpes, you know, the breaks and all that. It was,
the real deal. Yeah.
yeah, it was not too many breaks, but whatever they did, it was right there. You know what I mean? And then a few years after, I remember we were doing a show at Taino Towers at the red carpet. And then all of a sudden, Roberto Cepeda showed up. He,
Mm.
he had moved to New York. He had retired from the army. He was in the army, and I think he heard that there was a Bomba and Plena concert over there, and then he showed up. And then just playing, and the red carpet has a real big, how do you call it? Where people, could dance or whatever they could. It was a very flexible kind of space, but all wood. And I remember Roberto coming in. We were doing a bomba. He got up and started dancing. And I said, wow, this we never seen a guy dance like that before. Because Roberto, he is a unique dancer, one of a kind. You know, I mean, Paquito, he was our dancer, but he old school, very, you know, the movements precise, but Roberto was very flashy, and he had his own thing. And after that, we got him in the group, and Roberto, he really, influenced the way we approach Bomba in many, many ways.
Now, when did
Every,
you start? Yeah, go ahead.
yeah, no, not every guy used to bring something, and I haven't mentioned Carlos Suarez.
The piano player?
Yes,
Yes.
and I have to mention all these guys because all these guys brought something very special and unique to the group, and that's what really developed the persona of Los Pleneros. You know, all these guys, the fundamento, Carlos Suarez, Edgardo, Gallito, Roberto, every Tito Cepeda, all of them brought something very unique and very of their own thing that really was individual and collective at the same time. So,
One of the things that I wanted to ask you about Carlos, he, the times that I used to see him playing with you guys, it was just amazing. It was like he fit the hand going into the perfect size glove, because a lot of people that try to play piano in the plena and bomba style, they're just adapting Cuban guajeos,
yes,
patterns
yes,
to the music. But Carlos was the first guy that I ever heard. I go, coño, and excuse my
that's it.
French.
That's
I
right.
said, this guy knows exactly what's supposed to go here. And correct me if I'm wrong. He was blind, right?
He was blind, but he wasn't born blind, but he had this glaucoma thing that run in the family, you
right.
know. And his father was blind, his sister was blind. They all got blind.
But he was amazing, man. I mean, if anybody should have written a book about how to play in that style of music, which is very particular, it was him. If there's any videos with him, with you guys playing on YouTube,
Oh
if,
yes.
and you're a piano player, go study them, because that guy, I mean, it was just amazing. Tell
Oh
us a little bit about him. Uh,
yeah. Listen, Carlos is a foremost musician, man. He was a band leader. Was the first Puerto Rican band leader who went to Brazil, and and the front man, the singer was Chivirico Davila. you know, and it was man, an incredible story that Carlos told me. They went to Brazil, and when they got to Brazil, the promoter never showed up, and they got stuck there with no money. And then all the other cats started calling New York or Puerto Rico for family to send money so they could get back. He's, he's, he stood there. He stood there, and he lived for 6 years. Even
so
yeah.
he spoke. He learned how to speak Brazilian
Oh
Portuguese.
yes, yeah, Portuguese and all that. He just great, playing all the batucadas and the bossa novas and the Brazilian style. Oh, incredible.
Wow. Now that's something I didn't know. I mean, amazing. Yeah.
But he used to play with Cortijo also. You know, I've seen pictures on the radio shows. He was playing the piano, Cortijo timbales, things that they did. But this old time piano players, they knew how to approach the piano and all these rhythms on all these genres of la plena, la bomba, because the bands they used to play all this music before. It wasn't only salsa, you know, and boleros. They used to play boleros, salsas, pasodobles, guarachas, de todo.
Brazilian
Vallenato.
music, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Now, you form the Pleneros, and then you get involved with a group called Viento de Agua that takes Bomba and Plena into the 21st century before the 21st century arrives. Talk a little bit about that.
Wow. Okay. Let me see how I'm gonna make this long story short. Well, I met Tito when our first trip to Puerto Rico with Los Pleneros, 19.
Tito Matos.
Yeah, Tito Matos. And that was, we went there with Project Dos Alas. It was put together by Roberta Singer, our good friend, you know. And we were playing at the Plaza de Armas in Old San Juan. Everybody was there. Everybody was there. Familia Cepeda, because Roberto was part of the band. The whole, Don Rafael, Doña Caridad, la familia completa was there. All the pleneros were there checking us out. You know what I mean? And everybody was there. So at the last song, I knew that they were over there and I started calling, them to the stage. So I remember this short cat, very fast and unique player, left-hander, boom, boom, ba, 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 ba. You know, that was Tito Matos.
Yeah.
And then I think I don't know how many years passed that he came to New York. He got, with his wife, he came to study, and he started calling me. He said I never picked up the phone, and then he came we met at the SOB because there was a show there about La Familia Cepeda, and he knew that La Familia, so he called them. So they invite Tito to be part of the gig. So I went there to just check him out and say hi to Don Rafael. And I saw Tito. He said, what are you doing here? He said, you sucker, I've been calling you for 2 months. You never picked up my phone. What? You've been here? Come next time. Come next week. And he started playing with us. Next gig, he was with us since that time. And then, but he had this dream of having, of doing this all modern play. The way, is the new generation, the new wave of La Plena. He was, he's one of the top names that he was, and one of the guys who really made it, who put it there, the new wave of La Plena, Tito Matos. Incredible. So he invited me because remember, all the players who can play this music is just a small crowd, who can play bomba, plena. I mean, all the percussionists in New York can sit down and play. They can figure it out. But, if you really want to have a sofrito right there, you call those. You know what I mean? So that's how it happened. So I started playing with him. I love that band. I
And
love
you
that band.
and you've gotten to work with Miguel Zenon,
Oh,
who's really Miguel Zenon MacArthur Foundation Award winner, etc. Grammy nominee, multiple Grammy nominee,
yeah.
and Miguel in a small group context
Oh,
is
yeah.
really utilizing plena, infusing it even more so with jazz. Talk a little bit about that, working with Miguel.
That was an incredible experience, playing with Miguel and with David also, saxophone player. You
David
know,
Sanchez, yeah.
yeah. But with I remember with Miguel, he just said, "Listen, I remember I met with him like he called me. He said, "Listen, I need to talk to you about a project, and we had dinner together, blah blah blah. And we're gonna do this. Okay, these are the days that we're gonna get together." So we went to the studio, Midtown. What's the name of those studios at Midtown? I forgot. It was 3 consecutive days, just rehearsing the music. Those 3 days, and then next that weekend we were playing at the Jazz Gallery.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, just 3 days consecutive. Boom, 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 boom. And after that, the recording. we recorded in Brooklyn, big humongous studio. I don't remember, a real nice studio over there in Brooklyn. And then, you know, that was it. A year passed. Then the record came in. They started touring in Europe, and then they came to States for another tour, and then they invited. Oba was there, Tito, and me. And then I
You mean
remember,
Oba, Obanilo Allende?
yeah, yes. And the first gig was in California, Sacramento, in a club over there. And I said, okay, we have a flight. We take the flight in the morning. We got there in the afternoon. I said, well, maybe we're gonna chill, and we're gonna rehearse. He said, the first gig is tonight. Yo, what? We haven't rehearsed the music. They don't ask you, we need to rehearse. No, they are taking for granted that you are going to listen to the music and everything. Get ready. You know how jazz musicians are. How musicians, they don't question that. They know that you're gonna come forward. And so, oh man! So I went straight to the hotel and started. I was listening to music all the time, but then from there, the sound check and the first gig, and we stuck there for a week.
Fantastic. Now, one of the other things that I must say about Juango is that he's been passing the tradition on for ever since he started Los Pleneros by having these workshops for adults and for children at Julia de Burgos, etc. And he's always been forthright in continuing to pass on the legacy. And because of that, many Bomba and Plena groups have sprung up not only in New York City, but in Connecticut and in New Jersey. So I would say, and you could correct me if I'm wrong, there has to be at least in the tri-state area, at least 30 to 40 Bomba and Plena groups in the area. And even if it's just 10 or 20, that's
Yeah.
still a lot because this music is still somewhat under the ground. I mean, I remember when I was a kid growing up in the South Bronx, all you would see is Cuban rumba in the streets,
Hmm.
guaguancó. And then I remember one day going with Elena to Orchard Beach, and there would always be people playing guaguancó rumba with congas. But then all of a sudden, we get out of the parking lot, we start walking. I go to Elena, oye, yo estoy escuchando barriles. I'm listening to
Uh,
barrels,
yeah,
bomba
yeah,
drums. We get closer, closer, and it's a bunch of young people playing bomba. And I'm going, oh my God, I don't believe it. It's finally come to pass. People
yeah.
have finally got in touch with their Afro-Puerto Rican roots. And we're keeping that, and we have to supremely thank you for that because if it wasn't for you, that would never have happened. So we have you to thank, and we're so glad that you're here. We're going to take some questions now from
Yes.
the audience. From Annette Aguilar.
Uh-huh.
Do you still play marimba? And did you like studying with Fred Hinger?
Oh my goodness! Of course, I love. It was very challenging to go and study with him because I used to it's about learning the technique and applying that technique to the repertoire of classical music, particularly the timpani in the classical repertoire. Very challenging. And but yes, the marimba is up there, and in the attic. It's a digger marimba that I love it. I love it. I love that. It's a very old instrument, and I really, I'm very fond of that instrument. I need to just go up there more often and do my thing. Oh
So
yeah.
maybe that'll be inspiration. Maybe we'll hear you play it with Los Pleneros de la 21 as a
Uh,
special thing one day.
I always thought of that. Doing something with marimba. Yes.
Yeah, fantastic. Okay, the familia of Ocasio Flores, who he met at Rincon Criollo, did
Uh-huh.
they live in the Bronx? And how did they come to hang out at La Casita?
Well, it just showed up there. I don't know. I haven't been there in quite a while since this thing started. But I'm sure that there's always people there. There's a very inviting place. Now it's on 156 in Brook Avenue, right?
Okay.
Right in the corner. Okay, just go around and check the place. Maybe they're closed, but now you know what how it looks like and all that. And maybe I'm sure you will find people around and you can ask around. They'll
And
always, you get the right information. Yes,
it's a 100 East 156th Street and Brook Avenue in the South Bronx. And
yes.
when we're talking about La Casita de Chema, tell us a little bit. Well, first of all, the casitas is a tradition in New York City where these small houses made out of wood are representative of many of the houses that you would see in Puerto Rico en el campo, which means in the countryside. So they're kind of representative of that. There's several in New York City. But tell us a little bit about who Chema was, and because it's called La Casita de Chema, the House of Chema. Tell us who Chema was.
La Casita de Chema, yes, that was how many people, majority of people know, but the name of the place always been El Rincón Criollo. Or antes, I think it was El Rincón Borincano, the El Rincón Criollo. But basically, Chema was a very, this guy was something. Uh, he was a very magnetic kind of guy. His persona, he was so cool. He was so humble. And he had a. I love to go there just to talk with him. We got engaged in great conversations, just talking, not about music, about anything. And I went there just to, como tú dices, descargar, just to relax because it's the atmosphere of going, being in La Casita, very nice, inviting place, and then all of a sudden the panderos come up and you start playing without uh, caring about anything, just playing and having a good time. But Jema has always been that kind of a person, always open the doors for anyone. He was like, he knew. If you fail in a way, it's your fault. It's not his fault. You know what I mean? Because he was opening his heart to you and to invite you to his guarida. You know. So that's how many people, yeah, how this place got so popular, and because he had this great relationship with Marcial, and that's how I met. Uh, that's how I met him, through Marcial. He's always talking to me about Chema, Chema, Chema. So that's how I met him. Yes.
I would encourage everybody to go there. It's a very interesting dynamic. Not just the casita that's there on 156 and Brook, but there's several casitas in that area. It's a very fascinating dynamic. These casitas were built when New York City, the malfeasance in New York City by the politicians caused the city to go bankrupt, and there were many open air lots, etc. And these casitas were built by forward-thinking Puerto Ricanos as a way of reclaiming their heritage
Exactly.
and their history and their culture and reclaiming their dignity as well. So in all of this devastation, all of a sudden you walk by these burnt out buildings and everything, and all of a sudden you say, "Oh my God, I'm in the countryside in Puerto Rico. I don't believe this."
Yes.
So now that that area has been revitalized, it's still a place that you can reclaim your Puerto Rican heritage. And if you are not Puerto Riqueño, when you get there, you will become Puerto Riqueño and revel in our history and culture. So
Exactly. Exactly. Yes.
Richard Pagan said that he has video footage of Los Pleneros de la 21 in the 1980s with
Oh,
a blind piano player, and I
there
guess
you
that
go,
means
Carlos. Wow.
Carlos. That
Wow.
means
Really? I need your number, man.
so.
Contact the Bronx Music Heritage Center, please, because this is, what you're talking about. Whatever you have there, footage or recordings, this is history. All right, this is a piece of history. It's not because of Los Pleneros. It's because of the people who are there. Okay, so if let's share that. If you would not mind, just contact the Bronx Music Heritage Center, and we'll follow up with with you.
Yeah, we would
I
really love to
appreciate
see
it. A lot
Richard.
of people are going to appreciate that.
Yeah, especially piano players, just to see Carlos Suarez
Oh,
in the way he approached things. But you really freaked me out about Carlos living in Brazil for 6 years and
yes.
absorbing uh, Brazilian music. The only
Oh,
other person that I can think of that's Puerto Riqueño that did that was Tommy Lopez, the conguero for Eddie
really?
Palmieri. I believe he
Okay.
lived in Brazil for about 3 years,
Uh-huh.
and that's why on some of Eddie Palmieri's early albums, you hear him doing tunes like "Mañana de Carnaval,"
Uh-huh.
things like that, because of Tommy's influence.
Okay.
And
Okay.
that sound that you hear in the background is the sound of the city. We're in the Bronx, so I'm in the Bronx.
Yes, yes.
Anyway, what? Here's another great question. What gave you the idea to start the children's workshop? And that question comes from Georgie, from Jorge Vasquez.
Oh, well, Jorge, Jorge, I had to say about Jorge very quickly that he's been a great contributor, since he got in the workshops as an instructor, a teaching artist, I would say. He's an artist in the teaching of this journal of Bomba Plena. And he's been a great contributor. And the idea came when Los Pleneros started performing in schools. The advantage we had in schools is that you have a captive audience of kids. They have to watch you. But then, but it's also very scary because they're very honest. If they don't like something, they will tell you. But they will come to you and say, "I enjoy the music. Why didn't you come? Why didn't you call me to the stage? I want to come to the stage with you," and all that. Since the very first time we started doing those performances in school, because we were just us playing the music and showing the instruments and telling them stories and getting them to play right there. We got this set about 10, 15 set panderos, Remo panderos. We still have them. Great panderos, very light for kids to use. And it was, we had many years playing the schools. And that's how we got the idea of starting the children's workshop.
Fantastic.
Six children we started. Six. Three of them were my kids. Okay, my
And I
kids.
know, and I know you basically you have about 2 or 3 generations of young bomberos and pleneros that have come from those
Oh yes,
children's workshops. Yeah,
oh yes, I do.
amazing, amazing.
Yes, yes.
Julio Colon says
Oh, Julio Colon, my good friend. Yes.
that the Rincón Criollo was originally called El Batey Borincano.
Ahí lo tiene, Bate Boricano. Yo dije Rincón Boricano, but ahí lo tiene, Bate Boricano. Because Julio, one of the guys, who used to hang out all the time.
Fantastic. Gracias, Julio.
Sí, sí, que
Now,
un boricua que tocaba, el gran Julio Colón, sí, señor.
here's another great question from Angel Roman.
Ajá.
Is there a specific location in Africa that is the source of bomba?
Ah, you have to. I'm not a scholar in that sense. I used to learn from the old Puerto Rican, the old timers, and I know there's a lot of people who have really, gotten deep in studying the roots and all that, and probably they will say the Congo, el área del Congo, and that's where it basically originates all these foremost rhythms of La Bomba. Yeah.
And for those of you, the Congo is what we would call Zaire today, which is West Central Africa. Okay. Now here's a great question. Uh, how did Juan meet the great vocalist Sami Tanko, who
Oh,
became part of those pleneros?
Sammy Tanco, when we used to go and hang out at Central Park with all the fiestas de Boricua, it was la parada puertorriqueña, fiesta folclórica, whatever happened, you know, maybe a lot of people that are listening or watching that are too young to to know that the park was open, before to the public for people just to come and hang out and do things. When Puerto Ricans came into the park, we did bacalaitos and all kinds of stuff in the grounds. All right, when there was a fiesta, the fiesta was really happening inside the park. You know, tenía la parada ahí, pero you had to go in the park, and that's where the fiesta was really. And then, Sammy used to sing all the time. He used to sing la rumba, pero en la plena, because Sammy, as you know, Sammy is very charismatic guy. He's big charisma, and he used to have this long beard, una trenza aquí en la chiva, singing plenas, and then I remember the times when Marcial had to leave and Benny was leaving the group, and so I need singers, and I went to him because I already met him, in this plenazos over there, and I asked him if he would, be kind to join the group. So he joined the group, and a year after, he brought his sister Nelly.
Right,
Yeah.
Nelly Tanco. Yeah, yeah. That's Sammy, I must say, is a very striking figure because, as Juango said in Spanish, Sammy has a Fu Manchu, had a Fu Manchu mustache that occasionally he would tie up, etc.
Yeah.
Very handsome black man, and I didn't know. This is something I learned just now that I didn't know that Sammy sang Cuban rumba,
Yeah,
guaguancó.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
fantastic.
Also, La Plena, he was, that's what he really loved to do.
Now here we have a question that when we were studying with Puntilla, Bata, uh, and did we study together? Both me and you. We were studying. Did we study together with Puntilla?
Well, you know how it was. Portilla used to bring the drums, and there was also a guy who used to play well, he used to play la caja, and then we all the newcomers used to play the the concolo all the time. Everybody had to get one of those little drums to start playing, and that's we used to play the music. You start el ritmo, el aire que fuera. We had to do it right there. Kila, 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 whatever. Kila, 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 kila. Olvídate. Pero eso, that was some experience. Puntilla is puntilla, as you know.
We're talking about Orlando Rios, the great Puntilla, who is no longer with us.
Yes.
And the other part of the question was explain what the bata are there. These hourglass-shaped drums that come from Yoruba tradition in Nigeria, and they were reborn in Cuba in the 19th century.
Yes.
And they're two truncated cones. One head is called the cha-cha, the other one, the small head, and the large head is called the enu. The big drum is called the iya, or the mother drum, also known as the caja. The middle drum is the itotele or omelenco, and the small little one is called the okonkolo.
Yes.
And when you start learning, you apprentice on the okonkolo. And
Yes.
they're the closest thing that we have to Africa in terms of, besides the barriles de bomba, etc., that we have to Africa. Okay, I think that was the last question, and we're at the 1 hour and 30-minute mark, which is perfect. A perfect time to end this. Remember, ladies and gentlemen, if you missed any of this or want to watch it again, you can do so because it will play again and it'll be in the archives on the Bronx Music Heritage Center Facebook page. Wango, this has been a treat. Maybe we could do part two because talking about the future, el futuro of the bomba and plena, it has a bright future and that bright future is basically because of you. As I said before, this man won the National Endowment of the Arts Heritage Award, the highest award that any musician can get for their work in preserving folklore in the United States. So that's a pretty big honor. So as a fellow percussionist and a fellow Puerto Riqueño, we are so incredibly proud of you and how you've maintained the dignity of the Puerto Rican these Puerto Rican musical traditions and pass them on for so many years when you could have, because you had a successful career as a percussionist in Broadway and in pop music and in jazz, you could have continued in that, but you decided to devote your life, your entire life, to these traditions, and we're all the better for it. So, on behalf of the Bronx Music Heritage Center and Elena Martinez,
Oh yeah.
we thank you and we love you, like Duke Ellington said, madly. Si quieres decirle algo al público en español, en Spanglish o en inglés.
In English, you know, it's been a huge honor, really, an incredible pleasure, and you know the best of it, that
Huh?
the best part
Oh,
is
okay.
talking, you and me talking, good old friends of of times of those times that we remember, and not only that remember on our own, but also remember of together. Getting going together, doing things together, and that happens with uh, when you live a long, fruitful life. And I wish you many the greatest health and greatest fortune and greatest success in your career, in your life. Okay, de verdad te lo digo. Muchas
Gracias.
bendiciones.
Likewise, que viva Puerto Rico. And remember, ladies and gentlemen, the pandemic is only temporary. La música y la cultura es para siempre. The music and the culture is forever. My name is Bobby Sanabria. You've been listening to the great maestro Juan Gutiérrez here on Percussion Discussion from the Bronx Music Heritage Center on behalf of Elena Martinez. Buenas noches, good night y mucho H.
Cuídense. Bendiciones.